In this video, I'm going to talk to you about managing your appraisal. Now, this is vitally important. It's time to step up and manage your future development. Are you future-proofing yourself? There's lots to reflect on and lots of choices to be made. Now, your own appraisal, PDR, performance review with your manager or your directors, depending on what position you are within the organisation, this is a great opportunity for you to review where you're going with it all. Your job, your career, and you as a manager if you've got management responsibilities. Remember, we're all a limited company. We sell our time, our knowledge, our experience, our wisdom, bundles of enthusiasm, and in return we get paid wages and other benefits if we're fortunate enough to earn them. And yeah, how are we going to keep the doors of our limited company open? We've got to reflect and start thinking, how am I making sure that I'm going to stay relevant and value for the rest of my working career? So we need to review and plan our future, a bit like creating your own business plan. So this is a great opportunity during the year to sit down and really give this some reflection time and thinking. Because after all, how often do you really invest in you? I know the answer to that, and you know the answer to that. So we need to start thinking, are we maximising our skills and strengths? Or am I just falling into a role? Is this really what I want to be doing? What are my opportunities to develop and grow? Where do I want to go with this? Is this the right line? Before perhaps I get into a certain age and I'm sort of, I've got a mortgage around my neck. I've got a family and, I'm earning good money, but I'm going to find it difficult to change careers. So we need to reflect on a regular basis. Is this what I want to be doing for the rest of my life? Now's the time to make choices and decisions. Am I developing, growing, getting new experiences, coming outside my comfort zone? Or am I just inside my comfort zone, just on a grind, on a treadmill, on a hamster wheel, which isn't a lot of fun? How can I add more value? And perhaps, if it is the case that I want to develop and grow and get promotions and get pay rises, you're only ever going to get those if you can demonstrate that you can add more value. And am I reaching my potential? Or am I just sort of taking second best? What are my goals? Do I have them? Any objectives? Now, these are all loads of things for us to think about. And it may be a case that you're sat there thinking, but my manager doesn't ask me any of these questions, or my director. So if they're not very good at doing them, because higher up the ladder you go in any organisation, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it, the managers and directors are worse at doing performance reviews and appraisals with their managers, which is bonkers. You need to learn to do it yourself. You need to go and have a conversation with yourself and think, where am I going with all of this? And thinking about all the questions that we discuss in this video. What is vitally important is that you understand your appraisal or review system inside out, not just for your benefit, obviously for the benefit of your people. But you need to sort of understand what your manager's looking for and what the business is looking for. How do they think? How do they make decisions? What are they looking for out of you? And you need to be proactive, not reactive. So you need to treat this about how you can add value and bring more value to the organisation in the future. Now, you're going to find this a bit strange, but I think it's time that you start treating your manager or your directors or the business as a client, and start to think that you're the MD or the managing director or the general manager of your team, which you are. And what would happen if they outsource that? Would you run it any differently? And would you want better information from the business and from your manager if they were your true clients? So start to think of them like this. Start managing your manager as a client. You'll then be more challenging, get better questions and get better answers, and you'll start to manage upwards. On to the appraisal. Treat it like a job interview. Be fully prepared. Think about what's happened in the past and think about how you're measuring up. And if your organisation likes to measure you against competencies, values and objectives, make sure you've done your homework, and you've got examples about what you've achieved and how you've done it. So for all the competencies, values and objectives that you're being measured upon, sit down and think out some really good, well thought out of examples of how you're performing. If you want to wave your flag and show them that you're doing really well, have the examples to back it up. learn to talk positively about yourself, because if you don't do it, who's going to do it for you? Think about some well thought out examples of your accomplishments, the results that you've achieved. Know what you're good at and have good examples. Good examples, no bluff. Yeah, go well prepared. And it may be that your manager doesn't see it the same way as you do. So you've got to sit there and influence them. You've got to negotiate with them. And you've got to have some compelling examples of what you've done and how you've done it. In some ways, a bit like a job interview. Be fully prepared. The next area I want to talk about is you need to be talking positively about how you're developing your team. There's no point sitting there and moaning and groaning about your team to your manager. You're in charge of them. How are you getting the best out of them? So start to think about and have examples there again of how you're maximising their capabilities. Think about succession planning. Think about future plans and ideas. Be proactive. How are you going to structure your team in the future? What's needed? If you do need extra resource, have a good business plan. What's going to be the return on the investment? And as I said, start to treat your team like your own little business and you're the MD. And if that was the case and you're outsourced and running them, would you run it any differently? And talk positively about what you're going to do with them in the future and what you've obviously done in the past, but how you're going to plan and what value they're going to bring in the business for the future. And show them you're the safe pair of hands, you've got it covered. I don't need you meddling and telling me what to do, I'm sorted. But that will only happen if you come across as positive, assertive and very clear about the plans for your team for the future. Start thinking about your future. So we've talked about what we've done in the past. So why should you be considered for future promotions or certain projects? I quite often get asked, David, why should we give you the training work? Why should we let you train our senior managers or our people or coach people? If I haven't got the answer, I don't get the work. End of story. Fortunately, I do have the answers. I know what I've got, I know what I'm about, and I know the value that I can bring. So please start thinking about the value that you can contribute. Now, it's very fair to say that sometimes we get bogged down in what we've done in the past. I've done this, I've got that experience, I've done that, I've been here, I've got there, I've got the t-shirt. That's great what you've done in the past. And that builds credibility and people appreciate that. But what the real key is the value you can bring in the future. Yeah, because we're all fast moving. We're all on to the next thing in terms of how organisations are operating. So what next? So talk about the future, not just about the past. And that's really important, to sit down and start thinking, what value can I bring? How you're developing your team, what we've already briefly discussed, the succession planning and the fact that you're in control. Have ideas and solutions for the business. I've been thinking what our clients would really like. If we were able to develop this and provide with that, that'd be a great source of revenue. They're the types of conversations that we need to be thinking about. Here we need to move from just managing processes in our team and getting the day-to-day stuff and start moving up into leadership and having a vision and start thinking, yeah, what are new ideas? But you've got to create thinking time. So that's why we've talked about in previous videos about the art of delegating, getting your people to do the right things. So we're not doing too much. So we can start having these thinking ideas. Don't just survive in your job. Start to thrive in your role. Where are you going to go with this? How you're going to develop it in the future? And yeah, show that you're contributing. You're not just participating in a job. And I think that's really quite important. I've often used this in challenging people and say, look, you're just participating, you're just turning up, going through the motions. Come on, let's have a little bit more out of you. Time to step up. How are you going to contribute? You need to demonstrate that to your manager and your directors in the business. So it's great you're still with me, and because of that, in the link box below, we've got a free download in. It's all about managing your personal development and how you're going to future-proof yourself. I'm sure you're going to find it very useful for yourself and also for team members. Now, obviously, if you are treating your manager and the business and your directors as clients, it's important you get feedback. So do go with some good questions and have some brutally frank conversations with your manager. If you feel that you're not quite on the right level, how does your manager think you can add more value? Ask the question. How do they think they can contribute more? What advice would they give you? Do they feel that you're maximising your potential? Would they give you any career advice? Do you feel comfortable having that conversation with them? So it's vital that you get feedback, and perhaps you need to ask for some feedback from some other directors in your business and other managers, because you need to build your awareness so you can take responsibility for your actions, and you can then work out on the areas that you need to develop and work on. You can't do this on your own. Even as our own limited company, we need support and feedback. So go and get it, and don't be frightened of it. Sometimes you won't like the answers, but it's those answers that can make the biggest difference. I certainly have had some feedback in my career when I was in more of a day-to-day management role in businesses. And yeah, I got some harsh feedback and thought, that's a bit unfair. But then I went and sat down and thought, you really do need to address that, David, because if you don't, you're going to have a problem. So make sure that you get good quality feedback and ask for examples, and make sure that you go away and action them and then report back and say, look, you gave me this feedback at my last review, this is what I've done, and this is how I'm moving on. People will respect you for it and trust you even more, and see that you're trying to do the right things for the right reasons and in the right way. On the theme of, what next and the future, talk about your development. Start having a plan, and you may want to share some of this with your manager. You may like just to keep some of this to yourself. But when we come to appraisal time, it's a good time to stop, think, where am I going with all of this? What skills do you need to develop? What new experiences do you need to gain, depending on what your aspirations are and what goals and objectives you want to set for yourself? What's the marketplace going to look like in the next few years? What's your business going to look like? Do you understand the financials and how the whole business works? These are really quite important areas that you need to continue to focus on. And I know that the everyday job, we don't have time to think about ourselves and how we're developing. You know what my answer is going to be? If you don't do it, who's going to do it for you? So delegate and get the best out of your team so you can create thinking time. Perhaps get yourself a mentor within the business, or perhaps someone that you've worked with in the past. Go and ask them for advice. If the business will help you source and fund a coach and they will pay for it, I'm available. Give me a shout. And I help a lot of managers on a one-to-one basis in all sorts of organisations make the transition from technical expert to manager, and then manager to leader, and taking control of all the things that we're talking about. So if they're going to invest in it, do it. Focus on your networking, internally, externally. What technical skills do you need to develop and grow? What leadership skills and training may be on offer? Go and find out what they're prepared to pay for, because if you don't ask, you don't get. And this is a key area that I think is what you've got to demonstrate to your managers and your directors. You've got to learn to start thinking like them. And if you want to move up and develop your career, and you've decided management is the way forward and you want to continue to develop, start to think and learn how they operate. And perhaps there may be some directors that you feel that you can just go and talk to them and say, look, what advice would you give me? What areas do you think I need to develop? How do you see your job changing? And just be more inquisitive about the development for the future. Then you can decide which directions you want to go. Because if you don't look after yourself and manage your self-development, you know what the answer is? Who's going to do it for you? So we've given you a lot of tips and advice about how to manage your appraisal, your review. And it should be seen as a business plan for you for the future, and think about where you're going, because you spend all your time looking after other people, worrying about other people, getting things done. This is time for you to go and create some thinking time for you. Find some other colleagues that are going through the same process, and talk about their thoughts and feelings about reviews and how they get the best out of them. Don't moan about your managers and directors and they're not very good at these conversations. If they're not very good at it, as I said, you've got to learn to do it yourself. Or perhaps find a buddy that you can sit down and have these conversations with. Find a mentor, get a coach. Don't just sit there and moan and groan about it. Yeah? Because if you don't look after yourself, who's going to do it for you? Now's the time to step up and create real action. So thank you for your time. Please subscribe, Please like and enjoy the other videos on this channel on future-proofing yourself. Good luck.